All right, let's talk about something we've all probably daydreamed about. Reincarnation. You know, that fantasy that in a past life you weren't just, well, you. No, you were someone legendary, a powerful warrior, a wise priestess, maybe even royalty. Who knows? Maybe you were Cleopatra.
Or are we? I mean, is that really how it works? Because if you look just a little bit closer, a pretty simple, almost funny problem starts to pop up.
Well, the math it doesn't add up. Think about it. There just weren't enough thrones, enough pharaohs, enough legendary heroes to go around for the millions of people claiming that lineage. So what does that point to? Maybe not a past life, but, a very present vanity.
And that, right there, brings us to what you could call the Cleopatra delusion. It's this all-too-human tendency to treat reincarnation less like a path to profound understanding and more like, well, spiritual comfort food for the ego.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's funny, no one ever remembers being a poor beggar. Almost everyone remembers being a great king, a princess, a wise priest. It's a classic sign of what's been called infinite vanity. We're just trying to make our current lives feel a bit more special, but in the process, we're completely missing the real point of the whole idea.
So to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to ask a much, much deeper question. It's one that Buddhist philosophy has been wrestling with for centuries, and it's this. What exactly is the I that's supposedly doing all this reincarnating?
Okay, so the philosophical answer here is kind of mind-bending. What we call ourself, it isn't a single solid thing at all. It's actually more like a temporary assembly, a team of different parts working together. In Buddhist thought, this structure is called the quaternary.
So you've got these four parts: the physical body, the energetic life force, our emotions, and our thoughts. The thing is, they're constantly shifting and interacting with each other. That stable sense of I that you feel, it's really just the momentary balance point between all of them. It's not a permanent soul. It's more like a temporary coalition.
This image here illustrates just how fragile that I really is. Okay, imagine your personality is this perfect square, with the I right in the middle. Now, say you have an accident that damages your physical body. One side of that square gets pushed in. Suddenly, the center shifts. Your entire psychology changes. You literally become a different person. So the takeaway here is absolutely crucial. The I we cling to so tightly isn't some permanent thing. It's a dependent and ultimately an illusory center.
And the Buddha himself was incredibly direct about this. He basically called the belief in a permanent, unchanging I that survives death a foolish doctrine. But, wait a minute, this creates a huge paradox, right? If there's no permanent I, then what's all the spiritual effort for? What is it that actually reincarnates? The answer, it turns out, lies in a pretty profound mystery.
And the key to unlocking this whole thing, well, it's hidden inside a secret philosophical conflict within Tibetan Buddhism itself. We're talking about a debate that was actually suppressed for centuries.
So it boils down to this, a tale of two different takes on emptiness. On one side, you've got Shentong, which means self-empty. This is the view you'll hear most often today. It basically says everything is empty of real existence, and behind it all, there's nothing. Nirvana is just total annihilation. You could almost call it spiritual materialism. But then there's Shentong, which means other empty. This was the suppressed minority view. It agrees that the world we see is an illusion, but, and this is a huge but, it argues that there is an absolute eternal reality beyond it all.
Now, this Shentong idea was championed by a group called the Shentong school. But get this, back in the 17th century, because of a bunch of political and doctrinal fights, the school was completely suppressed. Their texts were destroyed and their teachings, well, they were almost lost to history forever. It wasn't until the late 20th century that they were rediscovered. So how does this forgotten doctrine actually solve our big problem? How can anything possibly endure if the self we know is just a temporary illusion? Right, so we're back to our unstable square. This temporary personality that shifts with every little thing in life and just dissolves when we die. I mean, it really seems like a hopeless situation if you're looking for any kind of continuity, doesn't it?
But this is where the Shentong view comes in and gives us an anchor. Imagine that personality, our little square, becoming the base of a stable pyramid. In the peak of that pyramid, it's connected to something higher, something eternal that exists outside the illusion. That connection is what provides the continuity, something that lasts beyond just one fleeting life.
And this, right here, is the true, profound meaning behind one of the most famous mantras in the world, Om Mani Padme Hum, which means the jewel in the lotus.
That jewel is the eternal anchor. It's our Buddha nature, that little seed of enlightenment that exists inside the temporary, sometimes messy lotus of every single personality.
Ancient scriptures back this idea up directly. There's this incredibly powerful sutra that basically says, look, if there wasn't this absolute uncreated reality, this unborn, then escaping the whole cycle of birth and death would be impossible. It's the very foundation that makes liberation even possible.
So, what does all this mean for us, like right here, right now? All this high-level philosophy actually leads to a very practical and, honestly, a pretty transformative conclusion.
Because here's the final twist, the ultimate spiritual trap. After everything we've talked about, the desire to achieve liberation for oneself, for me, becomes just another selfish ambition. It's just one more chain tying you to the very ego you were trying to escape in the first place. Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha just captures this feeling perfectly. The goal isn't to save the self, it's to let the self die. It's only when that I is finally gone that the great secret, as he calls it, can finally awaken. So, the true path, then, isn't really about looking up to gurus or chasing some personal salvation. It's about looking inward to find your own source of strength, your own internal engine. And then, from that place, it's about looking down and to the sides to serve the people around us who are hurting. Because the great wisdom traditions all seem to agree. The door to what's above only opens up when we truly start to care for what's right here, below.
And that right there is the big takeaway. The whole journey, through all the lives, all the learning, it was never about saving some transient personality or proving you were once Cleopatra. It was about dissolving the illusion of the separate self, only to discover the profound truth that the destination was never I, it was always and will always be we.